600,000 or 800,000 on the bond for first sale?
800. 800 and some.
Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Has everybody had a chance to look over the minutes from the last meeting? Changes? Motion to approve? Moved by Dale, second by David. All in favor? Motion passed. Consent agenda. I need permission for clerk to pay the Kansas Mayor's Association $50, Kansas Municipal Utilities of $2,659, Kansas Rural Water Association of $812, and Kansas Municipal Judges Association of $25. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dare, second by Larry. All in favor? Motion passed. Nathan, you're up.
I've got some papers here that's basically just kind of our money we brought in, money we spent this year, and then kind of metrics. A lot of that's going to be checkout and how many people we kind of had come in and that sort of thing. But obviously, kind of our biggest thing this year was basically with COVID, everything kind of stopped there for a while and then slowed down. We are kind of, we're gradually kind of getting more people back in there. I think people are just kind of getting over kind of being afraid of COVID, that sort of thing. We were able kind of right before this mask mandate in November to do basically 4 weeks of a story time there. That was pretty good for us, and also it basically got some more kids in there than I've kind of usually had in the past, just kind of on my own doing that. So that was kind of a high point for me this year. What else? We have had, with the city, we have had basically the fascia replaced on the exterior of the building. So that just kind of is updated and looks a lot nicer now. And that was TJ's improvements that kind of actually did kind of the labor of that. We've also had new soap dispensers installed in the bathrooms that are touchless. Also hand towel dispensers that are touchless. A new sink with a touchless faucet, and then also on the toilets, kind of a self-flushing sort of thing that's kind of been installed on that. Our game room, we've kind of had a game room in the past that has brought a lot more kids in there. I don't know what to do with that. I would like to kind of open that back up again, but I've kind of been using it for storage mainly. What I've done to try to do the 6-foot distancing is just kind of taken out a lot of chairs, kind of got those in storage. What else was I thinking? What we also do basically with all the books that we have in our library ourselves, and then also our interlibrary loans, we will receive those. We will basically put them in quarantine for a week. That used to be 3 days, then it got changed to 4 days, then that kind of led to some confusion, so we just kind of did a week, so we've kind of got everything marked by the day, so hopefully that's a little less confusing there. And then when we ship them back out too, then we basically wait a week to ship them back out as well. Like I said with COVID, my hope is that you see other states and this and that and the other, it's all kind of relaxing. I'm hoping we usually about this time of year have a fun on the farm story time for preschool kids. I need to get a hold of Penny Ginger again, but hopefully, if that's okay with her, hopefully we'll kind of be able to kind of start that up here pretty quickly. And hopefully this year kind of focus more on kind of I guess getting past COVID and hopefully kind of getting towards basically checkouts and foot traffic through there again that's getting more in line with kind of how we were pre-COVID. Do any of you have any questions? Or is there anything that I didn't really cover there that you would like me to cover? That's about all I got for you, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yep, well, you bet, thank you.
Thanks, Ross.
Yep, you bet. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, Natalie, Carrie, you're up.
Well, we are here just to, let's get over here. Just to kind of give you an update about what's happening at 202 on Washington, and Amanda is obviously on that board too, so I know she's keeping you pretty much up to date. But we're still meeting as the building committee, subcommittee of 202, and we meet every week. And we just try to get our plan going, but it is hard with COVID, and you know, especially because we can't go forward with fundraising because people have not been able to get together to have events. So we did really well, actually, on our donations and our campaigns, you know, matching and things like that. We've done really well for COVID, but we have a ways to go for sure. So we just wanted to let you know that we are still working. Things are happening, just sort of at a turtle pace.
We haven't decided to turn it into a brothel or anything. I mean, we're
Not
going
yet.
forward with our original plan. Sorry, Jar. I mean, I know you sent me all that information and Natalie. No, but we have done. Yes, see, this is the reason I said I was going to let her talk, and then I just couldn't stand it. In a COVID situation, a lot like what Nathan was saying and Natalie was saying. You know, the worst time in our existence, you want to raise money to try to do anything for a myriad of reasons. Probably 90% of all of our fundraising things that we had planned and had different committees formed to do, we were not able to do because it's nice if you're looking for money to actually have people. And so we just weren't able to do those. We did switch gears and did a number of did different things, and we have raised what I think by the last figures was 62.5% of what we needed to raise in a COVID year, which I think is phenomenal. Dane Hansen gave us an extra year, which originally was kind of funky because they said, no, the deadline is what the deadline is, which was the end of February. We just continued to move forward. And I think it's a giant number to raise about 62% of the total before the original deadline, and then they added on to another year, so we actually have until the 1st of March in 2022 to complete that. We are not sitting on our laurels. Betty Johnson met with us the other day and said that, you know, sometimes that 15% when you're dealing in that last 30, that first 15% of that is tough because you've had a nice run and you have a tendency to kind of sit. And the last 15% is easy because people want to see it completed. It can be kind of in the middle. We're not anticipating that, but
People have been very generous, very, very generous. And I think, Janet, did she send you an email that was?
Yes,
okay.
and I
I'll
put
got
that on the share.
So
so that
you can
is,
look over.
yeah, that is what do we want to say? It's a Reader's Digest condensed version of what this is right here. This is a new book, what we put together to give to all board members so they kind of get up to speed of what we've been doing. Did you get yours, Amanda? So, and what you received is just kind of a shortened version of that. Just for your own information, or for if you have questions, or where are you at now, you know who to get a hold of and whatever.
We got our new roof on, which I said I have never seen a roof, but ours was definitely the prettiest I have ever seen. But I've seen many, but it is an awesome roof. It's supposed to be like, I don't know, 100-year warranty or something. It's awesome. So that was a huge thing.
Or the life of the company.
Or the life of all of us.
So it's really about a 7. And
so things are really moving along. But it just, you know, seems like we want it to go a little bit quicker, but we're trying to be patient, and things are happening. So I guess if you have any questions about what we're doing next, or Our next thing that we're working on is the HVAC system, trying to get that going. Roger?
Kind of in tandem with the,
Yeah, ceiling?
no, not signage, internet and all of that funky monkey stuff.
Yeah, the technology.
Yeah, there you go, technology stuff work.
Yeah, yeah. And the signage on the front of the building is coming along, so we'll be having that up before long. And just want you to know we're still there. Things are still happening. So,
Has the board talked about, I was kind of asked this the other day, I know our fundraiser meeting was the other day too, and so we kind of bounced it around. Like, how do we answer to people about the sustainability? Is there a plan, later after it's built, to keep money coming in? How?
Yeah. You know, that's a big concern. When we had our meeting with Betty Johnson, we all talked about that. That was kind of the underlying issue for all of us. Like, if we get this going, how's it going to keep going? And so we set up a committee that is going to work on that. Three people are going to be looking into that. And in conjunction sort of with the Legion Hall over in Bird City, how they continue, and we know they have a big old pocket over there, but sort of how they keep things running. And so we're definitely looking into that.
And one of the things on the sustainability, when you visit Carnegie Art Center, Garden City Arts, Colby Prairie Museum, they all have secondary runs of income. And that was really, when we put the whole project together, the event center and everything, the rentable spaces, that was the primary thing. One of the things they all have in common, and I shouldn't use the word all, most of the ones that I have seen, that I have actually taken an interest in and asked of how they run things, most of all of them have a giant freaking endowment run to them, which we don't have. And so they go, oh, well, we make X amount here, and this kind of takes care of the utilities and the insurance. But they all have paid staff and everything else. And so, when we dip out of that, we try not to spend more than the interest, which is good. And so we're kind of unique in this. So if any of you feel like a cough coming on and you've got a pot full of money, we are open to donations in an endowment estate type of thing. But we just don't have that.
No, I was
Right.
just, somebody had asked and didn't have an answer. So I didn't know if it was something that was kind of
But that's the reason that
talked about
every,
it a little bit the other day.
yeah,
at our
every unique spot, even though it's a three-position plan. We have the gallery, we have the kitchen, we have the event center. Also, with each one of those, they're broken into three. Okay, so in the gallery, we have the featured artists coming in, we have the art that'll be on display all the time, as well as the gift corner. In the event center, we have three different things, three different parts that you can rent. The courtyard, the main part, or the east part, or you can rent them all in one, or two of three, or whatever. In the kitchen is also broken up into three parts. Our desire is to have classes that will bring somebody in, to have rentable small business incubators, is what we've talked about, rentable spaces for home businesses, food-based businesses that want to start, as well as the catering. That's about as far as we could figure out stretching this bad boy out to make it available and open to all types of income revenue. Once we get up and running, we'll have a little better idea. We will continue to run down Nate Hansen's road.
If you rented all three out, how many people in chairs would that encompass?
That is something that we're going to actually talk about at our meeting in the morning, because we need to know how much space we can accommodate. The magic number is sort of like 250 to 300. That's kind of what people are.
But that's not chairs. Okay, that's if you would rent courtyard, main section, east section, and you had like a big wedding, okay, which was funny because a lot of the information came out originally, right? This ought to hold 65 people, is what Psalm said, and we're like,
no.
And it's really hard when a casual statement like that gets out in public. You could have made 10 accurate statements prior. The one they'll remember is number 11 that said, Hunter, they're only going to hold 65 people, which was really kind of interesting. But he was like, well, you're not going to have any more in a wedding than that. I'm like, dude's from India. you got 65 people coming together because you just had a meal, you know, I mean, you got, and so, but, so we were looking at more in the 150 to 175, being able to seat in the inside. You can add probably, I would say 45 to 50 as you're looking at the outer courtyard. So you can have an event with all three things in that 2 or a little over 2 run.
Yeah, somebody said too the other day, well, we have the wildlife thing there. I'm like, well, I don't know how they will. You know, that's usually.
And we have reached out to insurance people, real estate people, and the possibility of just getting their brains wrapped around into that. So wouldn't it be cool to have a tri-state meeting here instead of you attend one somewhere else? You know, and so obviously we can't say we're going to, but they're all pretty open to that idea. I thought it was kind of cool to have one in our own backyard, so to speak. So, but that's in that sustainability thing. There's a lot of moving parts in that. So.
And speaking of funds, I know that Janet has talked with Lila at different times about the community block grant. Is that?
Yes.
Yes. And we know that that's being used now for road or for streets.
Yes.
We're all for that. But just to, I think we'll just keep, keep our foot in the door for whenever those are done and whatever else comes up. But we'd like to be thought of for that block grant.
So I talked to Justine about that, and as a charitable organization or 501(c)(3), they can apply for a grant, a CDBG Community Facilities Grant, through the city. They would be responsible for the matching funds and everything, but the grant itself would be through the city. So that can happen, but we can only apply for one CDBG grant per round, per year. And, obviously the street project is the priorities for now. But that is something that is possible in the future.
Does that can give you probably a lot more information than you wanted with the simple budget? Okay. So.
Is there anything else? I know Amanda can let you know a lot of stuff too.
I'm excited. I hope it comes to fruition.
We are too.
It was such a big thing when we got the roof done.
Exactly. It was a scary time. It's awesome now.
So.
Anyway.
Cool.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
What's the next step inside?
Inside?
Yeah.
The next step inside, well, like I said, we're working on the HVAC, we're working on the textile. And the tech, well, no, he has not been here. We schedule meetings, he can't come to that meeting, this meeting he could come to, but then we can't. And so it's just one of those things. COVID has really kind of screwed up their schedule. Well, that held back the roof for a long time too, because the head roof guy was ready to go, but his crew was stuck in Denver, and they couldn't leave for a long time, or stuck in that up and around area. So it's just kind of funky how things work out like that, but those are the two things that are next on our...
And then
What
walls
about
shortly. Excuse me?
What about the ceiling?
The ceiling, we are working on that too. We know that most people, the older people, which that's us, they want to keep their original ceiling. The tin ceiling meant a lot to a lot of people, and there's a lot damaged. So we want to be able to use as much of the original as we can, and we want to keep that same flavor throughout the whole building, but we might have to substitute with some,
kind of matching.
right, in a different space.
We have contacted a company in Missouri, and they will actually, and they're working on prices. This is a unique one, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. When you go to it, they make molds and they make new panels. Okay, and that's their whole company. What they do. You have a die fee when you step into something like that. If they've not done it, but they said we have done so many. We more than likely have your pattern.
Not us.
No. And so that is a road that we looked at. If we can't get close enough to match, on the other ones. So, but yeah, we're looking at keeping the original flavor.
We want to update it to make it function well and be very attractive, but we still want to keep some of the history because that was special to a lot of people.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you guys.
For your time, and thank you for all you do. Yeah.
Thanks.
Peddler's license.
I noticed on the applications that they're still the old applications, and it still talks about, well, down below, the investigation fee for the background checks. Still set references if they're not a resident of Cheyenne County, Kansas. However, with that said, I don't know that we talked about this with organizations like this, with the Girl Scouts. Are we going to require a background check for the Girl Scouts? I would think not, but the council's going to need to make a motion to waive the fees and the background checks when you approve these peddler's licenses, and they're out on the shelf.
Call me crazy, but I think I remember specifically someone mentioning the Girl Scouts when we were having that discussion. Did I not? Way
It's
back.
not in the
4 or 5 months
code.
ago. Maybe not quite that long, but that was one of the things we thought, we said obviously this would be one thing that we would waive.
And you can, but it's not in the code. That's what I'm saying. You will
And I
have to
couldn't
make a
just be
motion
dreaming
to
that, but I
waive
thought we
it.
did.
I'm sure we did. I remember that discussion too, but it has to be officialized.
Well, my understanding was when it was discussed, it was, we were not going to make a blanket statement. It was going to be on a case-by-case basis, because if we say anyone who falls under this can do it, it opens the can of worms. Well, if this falls under it, it was just going to be on a case-by-case basis. I have to say, if the council is going to require background checks on the Girl Scouts, it needs to be for each peddler, so each Girl Scout will have to have a background check run. So it's my job. I have to say it.
I thought, let me just ask this question. So I thought when we were talking about the peddlers, not the Girl Scouts, but just peddlers in general, that it was the person applying for the license, but not everybody. So everybody under them that's peddling has to have it. Okay.
I would believe so. I mean, because the purpose of having a background check is knowing that if somebody is going around in the community or to people's homes, that they are not posing a risk or a threat or have
So what about
something in the background.
the transient vendor, though? Is that different then? The transient vendor, it's just the business owner, but not the people that are in?
I don't
We
think
had
so.
this conversation.
I don't think so. I think when it was finalized, it was decided that there would be. Hold on. Let me pull up the new.
Well, we can look at that
Yeah, I was going to say,
later.
I can look at the new code
Yeah.
and let you know, but I mean, as far as the ordinance goes, the way it is written, is that there's an application fee. If the application says attach a list of names of the individuals who will be soliciting, I would think that all of those individuals would need to have a background check. I will look more into it and come to the next meeting prepared to discuss.
And I would make a motion that we make an exception for the background checks and we waive any and all fees from February to April.
For the
Wait,
Girl
wait,
Scouts
wait,
or
Girl Scouts.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
Moved by David, seconded by Gail, all those in favor? All right.
Gave you a minute there.
I'm like, no! What have you done?
What are you saying?
Correct. GAAP Resolution 2021-1.
That's the one that we pass every year.
It is the general, you have to have it for your auditors, it's just for the general accounting principles. There's no outstanding, there are no revenue bond ordinances or other ordinances or resolutions which require financial statements and financial reports to be prepared in conformity with the act for that year, so you're just waiving. I don't know what else to go through other than if you want me to go through the requirements of that Kansas statute. You have passed it every year as far back as I have records from Mike, so I do not know why you might
Doesn't
not.
that waive the general provisions of accounting due to small staff? Isn't that its intent?
Yeah, I think so.
Isn't it, that's the limits that. is
Right,
that
well,
you
and,
can't meet
and,
the
and,
standards
and
for
what it is,
Right.
it's doing it as a there's two different accounting methods. There's the accrual method and then there's the cash method. And it is not relevant this is not relevant to the cash basis method of accounting, which if you are so small, you fall under you are able to do the cash basis method of accounting rather than the accrual basis method of accounting. That's the size thing that JR is talking about.
Any further questions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Larry. Second by Dara. Need a vote, Violet.
Yeah, let's do that.
David? Gail? Dara? Larry?
Yes.
Motion passed. All right, water emergency plan.
So I put it out there. This doesn't change year over year for the most part. We can do a couple of things. If you guys want to have time to read it over and then approve it at the next meeting, we can do that. It's the same as it was last year with one change that I made, and that was adding AB Plumbing as a qualified plumber to the list. And everything else is the same. So it's up to you guys if you want to take time to review it and approve it next time, or if you want to go ahead and approve it. It's up to you.
We're just required to have it, and we just list assets and local resources for the emergency plan that we have to maintain. Part of that is to review it every year. Simple thing.
Okay, we can approve it, right? It's pretty much the same.
Is that a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Gail, second by David. All those in favor? Property cleanup.
I don't think we have any other cleanup unless, did we contact Paulson? Did we follow through with anything with Paulson, finding out he did get his taxes current? Probably not.
We haven't heard anything back. I think we have a letter. I'll have to check. I am back for the first. I'm
Right.
back.
I think we found out just before the last meeting that the taxes had become current on that one that we was active on, so we was going to go ahead and pursue it. So I
Right,
think
and
that meeting-
I had drafted a letter. I do not know if it has gone out.
Okay.
I will follow up with my staff.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Project spending. Lauren, anything on the KDOT?
I have not. I have put in another call, a follow-up call. I left a voicemail not last Friday. I left a voicemail on the Friday before last Friday, the 15th. I have not heard back. I still have 77 emails unchecked. I came back to 513 emails. I still have 77 I have not yet gone through. So my understanding is that if I got a call back, I have not seen the email yet, or I have not yet received a call back. But I did put a follow-up call in on Friday the 15th. If I don't receive a response, I will call another law firm.
There's two items on there that may end up getting combined if we decide to go that big. I'm talking to Betty Johnson, who is with the Hanson Foundation. I met with them at the theater to talk about the theater and was able to talk to us a little bit about the band shell. Her thoughts on that was to go bigger, go park, not just that band shell thing. The only issue I see with that is they like to see a lot of matching money or labor. I mean, we can put it outside of our reach, essentially. The seating for the band shell, I'm just going to throw these three together just because that's what she suggested we do, is to go big with projects as far as Hanson is concerned. So the seating was $56,000. The band shell, or the sail shade is in the 160, 180 range, I think, and I'll look that up further. And we'd also talked about a tree program there. I think the Sawhill Park improvements was a general park thing. So I almost bet we probably ought to be looking at those as a single large thing. We do have seed money at the city from an individual. I think it requested never to be named by name, but there's about $30,000 in an account that was left just for the band shell. Was it just band shell or Sawhill Park?
I think it's the park, but I don't know that for
We
sure.
can clarify that, because with $30,000, it's obviously not going to go that terribly far. I mean, it could obviously cover some of the expenses on the band shell, but I almost think we ought to condense those, 3 things down to that, even if we stage the project in order to get funding, because we obviously can't take these 3 things individually and fund them by the city. However, we can break it into 3 parts, calling it one overall improvement project, and apply for funding, come up with matching money, and get this done with some money, to back it up. So I would suggest that we take that, the grouping on that, and just turn it into Sawhill Park improvements to include sail shades, tree program, and the band shell seeding, and see where we can go with that.
You talk about your tree program, are you talking about big trees?
Talking about getting trees replaced, just based on the age of trees, the placement, there's not enough shade like there used to be. Even, I mean, there's some trees that are on their way out.
I guess my question is, could you go back in with big trees?
To a point. You can't, obviously, 4 or 6 inches, you start getting into root systems that you can't deal with and cost.
Well, don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to the sail shade idea, I just think that's way out of our reach.
I've always thought it has been, based on the money, but if half of it is...
But I wonder if the trees could eliminate some of those issues.
Not inside of 30 or 40 years. You could, in fact, maybe scale the sail shade system down with the anticipation of that being a factor. I mean, I think that's a doable thing, but if you look at the whole big picture of it, then you could incorporate that or do less there and more here, possibly.
What does the work for the seating entail? Did they just give you a description?
Oh, yes. I have a proposal from somebody who does concrete work specifically like that. So first and foremost, obviously, is the problem of grinding and removing the existing from there without damaging the surface. However, the surface and some of the structure of it is damaged. So the primary thing would be to remove what's there, bring it back to the structural integrity that it needs to be, and then it would be basically concrete fixed with wherever it's needed, and then it would all be sealed as new concrete. And then it would be stained, and then the sealer would be put on it repeatedly to keep the water damage from happening. Most of the water damage that's there is caused by the stucco. The stucco was put on to cover the damage, which it just kind of perpetuated it in that direction. But this would take it back to original, so it would not be a problem with the historical registry. However, the sail shades still may be. That's one of them that might. The trees would not. But yeah, it would be going back to the correct form.
So there's actually not a whole lot or any real cement work, just concrete sealer.
More than you think.
I think quite a bit more than you think, for the simple fact of what's there is it's a lot of filler, and then they have mesh, and it's almost a stucco style on there. Because
that makes me feel better, because I'm trying to wrap my mind around $56,000
of course
for grinding.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
It's a lot of work. The previous estimate we had from the individual who was just removing it was $30,000. This would complete it back to its original structure. So,
and they feel like that process is better than, I think we were going to do sandblasting with walnuts or something at one time.
Yes, and then painting, but we never did have an estimate on the painting. However, the painting, because of the temperature changes, is a maintenance issue. If you can take it back to concrete and seal it, it has a better natural wear to it. Plus, it would be historically correct. So, that's the one thing we have to work with. If we was to put a coherent plan together that involved it all, and we could do it in stages with Hanson, I think would maybe be the best way to look at it.
Did you guys talk at all, anything about the interior, the back of the band shell?
No, and because I think that is going to be entirely at the historical side, because that's almost a no-touch with the paintings and what's there. I just don't think we could even begin to
You're probably right.
do anything with that. I think that's all going to be match money. And is
I
that,
thought
is
there
that,
was-
is that CDBG money? I forgot what funded that previously.
I don't know. I wasn't here then. I'd have to look at the document.
We need to look at what funded that. It's, or is it is it actually, I thought it was federal money.
I don't
think it is.
I thought we had some money set aside for band shell improvements.
That would be this individual's,
That seed
Fund
money.
that-
Strictly for the band shell.
could be. But that's what we have to check out, whether it was for all of the, whether that seed money. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I
So,
think that-
so you bring up a good point. So we're doing the work on the outside, will that affect the historical society, stuff that we will need to get done on the inside?
No, and the reason is if you're going back to historically correct with
Okay.
it, you can do what you want to.
Okay.
The big hitch that we had with going through the historical registry and doing that through that process was we lost somewhere between 50 and 70% of the money in administration. And what we ended up doing is taking that person who left the $50,000 and just kind of handed it over. Nothing really got done for it. The expense of what actually got done was far in excess of what it would actually cost us to do that work. So that got discouraging for using this person's money or the city's direct funds. So that's kind of what put that in a stall. And it may be different now. That's, it's time, it still remains on the registry, so we have to remain in contact with them, so. And I would have to check on the band shell sales shades anyway, and the work in the seating, even though it is correct, that would most definitely need to be cleared by that as well.
Aside from the pricing, we could talk about that as we go. What type of guarantee or warranty or length of, time span do they offer those cell shades? Say that 3 times real
See,
fast.
that's always been a concern on the sales shades. You're supposed to be able to leave them up in extreme wind and all that stuff, but this part of the country, that's kind of hard to imagine. They
Right.
are removable. I think that was the big issue. They claim you put them up and you leave them up. I can't imagine that's the way that would go.
Anything else on project spending? If not, street project.
So, we received a bid last Thursday, the 21st. We did receive only one bid, and it was from McCormick Excavation, which ironically is the company that always does the city street work. They're out of Stratton, Colorado. And their bid was $1,167,896.32.
Not 32 cents.
I know, it's just going to push you over the top. Tyler and Hilmer with Miller Associates had an engineer's estimate of $1,276,037. So, it's well below, not well below, 8 or 9% below the engineer's estimate. That's typical that it is below that. I think it's a fair bid. Millers have not gotten back to me. That was late on Thursday. Of course, they have to go through and review the entire bid before they would make a recommendation. But as it sets, I would be confident that McCormick would stand behind their bid as shy of any measurement mistakes or something like that. I would hopefully be coming back to the next meeting and saying the bid is validated and you can accept it. But at this point, it's just the bid.
And what's the time frame once it's accepted?
It would start spring.
This spring?
Yes. That's all I have on streets.
All right, building permits.
So, we had a KDHE violation on sewer testing. We have to test that each quarter for discharging the water to the river. We missed a sample, so we're going to actually have a violation that will have to be published. I called them right away. It was 4 days after the deadline date when I noticed it. They asked us just to take the next quarter's sample right away. It's not, there's no fine. It's just a public lashing, I guess, for missing the sample at the end of December. So, again, there's no fine associated to it. You have to get quite a few of those violations before they start threatening those things. We haven't had one of these for a long time. But anyway, I feel bad. It does have to be published and stuff that we failed to do the same. That doesn't mean the system is failing in any way. The pond system, my system.
Go on the front page.
What's that?
Go on the front page.
Yeah. Next thing I have, I had mentioned this at the last meeting, as far as a utility vehicle for Parks and Rec. We have fought with that Kawasaki thing that we bought in 17 over and over. We got to looking around at trying to do something more local, because we went everywhere with that thing all over the country. It seemed like trying to get it fixed, never could seem to get to. So we went to John Deere, and they produce a John Deere Gator thing that is of the right dimension and use practice. We'd be able to take it to Wheeler if we have a problem with it, instead of hauling it all over the Kawasaki dealers. It has all the dimensions and, like I said, the usefulness that we need. However, based on the fact that our Kawasaki has somewhat of a problem, they don't and won't offer what I would consider to be a reasonable trade-in. So I would like to propose that we actually buy the John Deere with the municipal discounts, and then sell the 2017 with the disclosure that obviously there is some issue with it, because I'm sure we can get more than $3,000 out of a 2017 Kawasaki that just I don't quite right. So I would like to suggest we go forward with the $16,850 for a John Deere Gator.
Is it new?
What's that?
Did you say it was new?
Yes, brand new. Yes.
Does it have a cab and all that stuff?
It just has the windshield, because we want that open for what we do.
Spray
Yeah.
and stuff?
Yes. Yeah. The only real upgrade from the type that we have would be that the box is hydraulic. As you're getting older, lifting that box of dirt, I actually kind of like that idea myself. The other addition, I guess, on it is that it does have a winch package where you could put a small blade on it, which is always handy when you're messing around in the snow or on vehicles and stuff. So, but that would have to be added on to it.
Yeah.
So,
What's your ballpark of what you think we can get from Kawasaki to sell it outright?
I would hope close to 10. I mean, it doesn't have that many hours on it. Somebody's going to recognize what it is.
Right.
I would hope between 7 and 10. But it's just a loss to us. We spend more time messing with it than anything else.
Is there a motion to approve the purchase of the John Deere Gator? So moved. Moved by Darrell, second by Cale, all in favor?
EMC Insurance Company, Employers Mutual, that's who we insure all of the city's properties with. They, from time to time, will do property inspections without us present, and they identify that they consider to be risks for the city. Kind of surprised they hadn't recognized this sooner now that they brought it to our attention, but the steps of the city hall, from the freeze thaw and the original pour of that, it got chewed up by salt in the first year. It's always been a mess. The city stance on it always was, we'll let it last as long as we can before we have to replace all of the steps in front of the city hall. That time is now. With it being brought to our attention by our insurance company that it's a safety issue, I'll be working on bids. I don't know how many contractors I'll be able to get to look at that, but I've talked to the primary local concrete guy already to put me some numbers together, just some budget numbers, because that's going to be pretty expensive to remove and replace those steps. So we can decide what we want to do, whether we want to try to go into a multi-bid process or how we want to deal with that. We're going to have to drop a pretty specific specification for that. Safety is there's a bit of a grade. The steps are not even steps. They gradually change as they go. So we'll be working on
How's that
it.
been?
What's that?
When was that then?
When did we do this office? 04? We got a lot more out of it than I expected at that.
Which we had talked about,
Mhm.
that here a year or two ago,
Mhm.
about replacing them, and then
Just
we kind of,
look- yeah.
tabled it because of
Yeah.
other projects, I think.
Yeah.
Would the rock be the only one in town? Or, well, not really, I guess. Depends on the
I don't know. It just depends. I mean, there's a lot to it. I wouldn't want to get too small of a contractor to get tangled into it. It needs to be
Yeah.
done timely and very specifically. So, I wouldn't want to discount somebody and say, no, he's the only one that can do it. But I think we need to take into consideration the crew the person has.
Given the drama that we went through with the courthouse steps here a while back,
What was that?
You wanna get-
given the drama that we went through with
Yeah,
courthouse steps here a while back,
exactly.
that was a lot of, for a long time, I would almost say, go with who you know, clear it right.
And we will. I mean, even if we do get multiple bids, the city has the right to refuse any and all bidders bring. So, good example of where bidder doesn't always get the job done best. But anyway, we'll be working on that, just so you're aware. If you hear any concerns or complaints about that, we'll get a process going on that. So obviously, I spoke of that just a minute ago, that I met at the theater with Robert Grace, Tom Keller, Tom Small, and Betty Johnson, January 13th. Went over the project that we were looking at the theater. Of course, previously meeting or 2 meetings ago, the city had said if the foundation was to fund half of the architect, that the city would pick up the other half of that tab. This is the next step to that project, that if we have that plan in place, how we would apply to the greater foundation of Hanson for the funds to the tune of $220,000 to $270,000. In going over the project with Betty Johnson and that group, it was recognized by her and the group to be significant and relevant for the community, and it does make the cut for the strategic doing. That being said, there's a lot of work to do even after we get the architect. And do you have that application? You've been working on that with Robert?
Yeah, I don't have it done yet, but
Will
yes.
it be to them by Wednesday? I know they have a meeting Wednesday. I'm just asking. If it's not, that's fine. I'm just asking.
No.
Because I just found out their meeting this day. That's
I
fine.
did not know that was a,
I just talked to Tom today and just found out their meeting, the local meeting is today.
Foundation meeting,
Yes.
when's the next one?
and it'll be a month away.
That's not going to hold anything up. There's a lot of work to be done once that's cleared anyway, so don't.
Okay, I definitely will have it. Year-end kind of got a hold of stuff. I would have it by the next one, though.
Yeah, no problem.
Is that the kind of totals you're looking at, is 220, 270?
That was the original estimates that Miller and Associates gave long before we even brought an architect in. So I obviously talked to Betty that it could go far in excess of that, highly unlikely it would be less than that. But we went through all of the accessibility, the food service, the lack of water, the flooring,
Electrical.
just went through everything in that list that was made by Miller and Associates, and then the architect came up with their estimate on. So whatever the case, I think she recognized it as an important project. That being said, they like to see money or work in kind to the tune of half the project. That's pretty significant. I'm glad to know that now, though, because once we get the architect in place, if the foundation clears that, we're going to have to build that in. You know, how we're going to, by volunteer, by city crew removing things, by somehow we've got to get that in-kind money in the plan, or you're not going to get funded by them. So that's something that will be important that we get worked out. I'm not quite sure how, but it's still a lot better than trying to fund it through the city, because we just couldn't directly.
I personally painted both of those bathrooms over there, because when we did our Faith and Action Sunday in our church, we did a lot of work over there, so. I imagine you get a lot of churches, volunteers, people to help. People really appreciate the theater.
Yes. The trying to put what can be done by volunteers is kind of a little bit concerning, just in the fact of heights, you know, the roofing. I mean, the seating being removed and the removal of the fixtures, like in the bathrooms, I mean, it's kind of limited. I'm a little concerned about that, just based on safety, what you would want people volunteering to do. But whatever the case, we'll figure out a plan and have that be part of that thing if we get, like I said, funded through the local foundation. The last item I have is insurance. Our health insurance renewal took a significant jump this year. Part of that is due to the COVID, the unknowns of it, of course. Get tired of hearing that over and over. There was a general increase across the board. Our increase was 25.6%. Yeah, it's quite significant. We're in a grandfathered plan currently that's actually a pretty decent insurance. Because we have so many fewer employees now than we did a long time ago when we put a cap on health insurance costs, it fits well within the cap that we have on our insurance. We could still hire 2 more people and it would still be under that. So we have the ability to fund this. We've had these come up in the past where we get these really big hits. You just hope it's the one that takes you for 3 or 4 or 5 years before you have another one. To change it off of the grandfather's plan, well, I guess just to be real direct about it, it would be very detrimental to the employees. It takes away co-insurance. It ruins that. It takes the deductible up, and it changes some of the coverages. It's not worth it from the standpoint of keeping employees. So I would strongly suggest we just go ahead with that increase. If we want to look at something different in the future, we have done that before. We've always stuck with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and I hope we do for the most part, unless they continue to have rate increases like this. But I would suggest we just stick with them this year.
So what is the total then?
So we have the projected, and then we have the total existing on employees. Do you have that, Lila? I don't have that spreadsheet.
Did I not give it to you? I didn't make
I
a
just have a
copy.
few that Jim forwarded.
I know not all cities around here use the same company, but I would imagine there's been an increase
Yes.
everywhere.
Yeah, and our actual premium, I'd rather look at the number that says that you'll hire 2 more. So the projected, what it would be if you can find the 2 employees that we actually want to replace. Because that's more significant to me. I would never want the insurance to be in a position where it's high enough that we can't afford to have the employees that we always know we can get if we find the right ones. The monthly premium on it with the existing employees we have would go from $12,400 to $15,560.
So with the current employees that we have, for what we're paying annually for that is $148,960, and the new rate will be $177,711.
And is that with the projected 2 additional?
No, that's just with
That is the rated, yes, okay.
That's just what we have, but with the new rates, we could still have 2 new employees and still be under the $250,000. 2 new employees who have a full family plan.
And that's something we've always tried to stick to. I mean, we've ended up with fewer employees than we ever intended, but that number came up a long time ago. It's not something that has to remain married to, but I think that started probably all of 17 years ago, that it should never exceed that number. You're not bound by that. That's just a figure that we've always gone by.
Do I hear a motion to discussion, or? We can move to approve the insurance. Is there a second? Second by Dara. All those in favor?
I do have one more item, and I don't know how I skipped over it, was the recycle. That's one of the most important ones. So our recycle is going to take a complete do-over. The recycle regional organization is not likely going to make it. At one time, it had 8 counties. It's down to 3. I went to a meeting. I was invited to go to the meeting about that, Northwest Kansas Recycle, which we are a part of, in Bird City on the 13th, the same day I met with Betty Johnson at the theater. She was there, and what they were hoping to do was to get money to relocate a building there. However, in discussions at that meeting, there was probably 12 or 15 people there. There was the other 2 counties, Rawlins and Decatur, had representatives there, and then, of course, Cheyenne County representatives. Roger Jensen, who has always been the main person, set up the recycling from the very beginning. He was there and spoke to the group about the situation that they had. Basically, as it stands, the operating organization in Colby has a budget that they need to operate on is $150,000 a year. Their current income with the 3 cities' input and sales of recyclables is $70,000. It's completely unreasonable to think that the counties can come up with that kind of money. The director that operates the Colby Center, where everything goes from these 3 counties, is insistent on that budget is fixed at that amount, whether it's 3 or 8 counties. Whether you agree with that or not, the cost of doing that is just way too high. The counties cannot bear that. I've talked with Dave Fleming and Willie Martinez, along with Roger Jensen, after that meeting, and the likelihood of that organization continuing is about 0. There may be a situation where we can work with the other counties, but first and foremost, we have to figure out what's best for Cheyenne County. I think in Roger talking to the Sunoco, which is where all of the recyclables currently go, there's probably not a way to work with that company because they're clean recyclables only. Single stream is the big thing that all the ones that are cutting their costs are going to. It's a little disturbing in the fact that you separate everything out when you collect it, and then you put it all back together, and you haul it down to Hutchison. But that's the modern method of the recycling, that it's separated again down there. Cardboard often is contracted and picked up and just hauled from here, and then you get paid for the cardboard. So there's several different options we can look at. Currently, there is enough money to operate that center until approximately July, and then it will be out of money, so we have time. I think we have options as far as if it did come up sooner than that. There's also assets associated to this organization. Keeping in mind that these 3 counties, anything from the sales of property would go to all 3 of the counties. But there's approximately $210,000 in assets and property that could be liquidated over time, hopefully to either buy balers, truck for transportation, something. But we'll have to figure out a sustainable year-after-year operation that can work for Cheyenne County. And again, that may or may not work with Decatur and/or Rawlins County. But we're working on solutions for that. I'm going to go to the commissioner meeting this Friday to discuss what possibilities we have or what we've come up with so far. And when we get something that works for Cheyenne County, we'll present that to the council and to Cheyenne County.
Was it working with all 8 counties?
Yes. But at that time, of course, there was Scott County, Thomas County, there's big counties.
And have they gone out on their own?
They have, just due to the cost kept going up. And then, of course, as more members were getting out, then the cost even went up even more. When Thomas County went out, that was kind of the nail in the coffin because it was where the hub is. And then not only do you lose the dues, but you lose the cardboard, which is sold. Most everything else is a cost to handle. But yeah, it was destined to fail once it got down to so many counties.
So what's like Colby doing now?
Single stream. Yep, I talked to, I think his name, Roy Elfers, runs it for Colby, and what they do is single stream. They contract their cardboard, they bale it locally, and then it's picked up, and they're paid by Centennial out of Colorado Springs, Colorado, somewhere. They're paid $60 a ton for it, and they come pick it up. Everything else is collected, just like we do, and then it's put in a compaction truck, and at 8 tons per load, it's hauled to Hutchison. So
All
that's
mixed
what they
together.
do. Yes.
All the,
Goes back down there, they put it in these big separators, and it re-separates it. Yeah. But you have to use a compaction truck, because you can't haul plastic jugs and things like that, you know, it just makes no sense. Some of the things we've discussed is the possibility of some of the glass actually going to the landfill. One of the good things about recycling is it's extended the life of the landfill. Of course, the big scare has always been, what if you have to haul it to another county? That's not a near-term problem for Cheyenne County. I was really shocked to find this out. Dave gave me some information that would suggest that the Cheyenne County has over 100 years now. There was a time when before they was able to go higher with this stuff, that it was down to 20 or 25 years. I mean, it was within reach was the end. But with new methods and with recycling, that time period has been extended out there. Of course, the time period being extended by recycling is just the less tonnage. I mean, this thing's been operating for 20 years at 200 tons a year. That adds up. So that makes a difference. So I think recycling is a good thing, obviously for the city and the citizens and the county, and it needs to continue in whatever form can be afforded. We just don't know for sure what that is yet.
Somebody told me, that I don't know, it could be completely way off base, but is there such a thing as an EPA-friendly incinerator that counties such as ours could use to burn, incinerate, sort of take it up space?
The only thing I'm familiar with that would be even close to that is it's called a digester. It's actually a system that separates things that degrade in the same ways, but it's called a digester, and I'm not even that familiar with that. But that's a way they get stuff to compost quicker and get it to break down faster.
Okay.
But yeah, incinerating, I don't know if there's. I just don't know. So, when we have more information, I'll go meet with the commissioners, talk about this same stuff, and we'll try to find some answers. But we do have some time, and we do have some assets, so we'll do the best we can with it.
Anything else?
That's it.
Other questions or discussion?
the compactor, that's on a truck, or it's a truck?
It's just a big trash truck.
It's a big trash truck that probably crushes it or compacts it like the cardboard compactor almost?
Yeah.
Ties it up?
Well,
Or
no,
bale?
it's actually literally a trash truck. You actually run the thing and keep compacting it until you get 8 tons roughly in the thing, and it drives down there, and it empties it just like it was at the dump.
So you gotta drive it down every time too.
Yeah. But think about it, if you don't compact it, you're hauling most of the air.
Well, yeah,
There's
exactly.
only one way to do it. You can't bale it locally.
Yeah.
One last issue on that is Sunoco, the one we deal with now, owns one of the balers here, but that's why I speak of the other assets, is there are some liquidatable assets to purchase another baler. The only thing we would be baling if we did it would be cardboard, though. Currently, we do cardboard and chipboard, so it's a single item.
How does that work? I'm just curious, if it compacts it and then it takes it down there, how do they uncompact that?
When you spit it out, when plastic, even if you bale it and you cut the wires, it's got a memory to some degree. It comes apart. Yeah. And they use loaders. They break it apart. And if it's the one I've been to, and Stutzman is the one I've been to, that's a single stream. Now there, it looks to me like they just bring household trash in on the truck. I mean, it's dirty. And they pour it out, and the loader pushes it up there, and it goes into this big conveyor. And if you ever seen one of those movies that has those giant machines that has a conveyor going every which direction with all the mad scientist stuff, that's what it looks like. It's weird. I mean, this thing's spitting plastic over here, paper's going over there, and it's got these, it's the craziest thing you've ever seen, but it does fairly efficiently send like products. By the time you get to the end and looking at the conveyors, it's taking the separate items to the separate places where they're then shredded or dealt with.
Interesting.
Glass too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the glass is real heavy, so there's these big chopper things that are going around like this, but all the glass falls off right before it gets to that, and then that separates plastic. It's the weirdest thing. It's shooting pieces of it in different directions, but they all end up on the conveyors. There's people on the ground picking stuff up, putting it back up on the conveyors.
It'd be interesting to watch that process.
Yeah, it is. It's strange, to say the least. It's an extremely large machine.
Huh.
Anything else for JR? Is there a motion to approve the superintendent report? Moved by David, second by Larry, all in favor? Attorney report.
On the shared drive for this meeting is a law enforcement agreement, if everyone would like to open that. It has come to my attention through Lila, and she spoke with Scott about it. The agreement actually expires on the 31st of December of 2020 and needs to be renewed. If you look at paragraph 14 of the law enforcement agreement, it states either party may renew this agreement upon the same terms and conditions for another year or upon giving notice in writing of its intention to renew on or before September 1st of each year, except the consideration of this agreement shall be negotiable. The renewal shall be effective with the same consideration unless the other party notifies the first party in writing on or before November 1st of its desire to renegotiate the consideration. Lila had spoken with Scott. If I am saying anything wrong, please correct me.
Scott Houtman.
Scott Houtman. Scott had spoken with Scott Houtman about it, and he had spoken with Leslie Bimes, and she had suggested that we remove item number 14, so that way it does not terminate and it does not have either party may renew. I disagree in reviewing it. I think we need to amend it, and we need to say, so that the way this doesn't happen again, we say that it automatically renews unless either party terminates it, so we're not finding ourselves on the 25th of January saying, oh wait, we didn't renew our agreement. I think what we need to do is do it so that it automatically renews at the same provisions unless someone gives either a termination notice or a notice of negotiation for the price. And Lila and I were speaking, and since budgeting is done in between the end of June and August, putting in that in the event that there is to be a price increase for the following year, that needs to be brought to the attention no later than June 15th, and so that way we can have it done by August, and that there would be a termination. If either party was going to terminate, it would be the termination would be given by September. I mean, I don't think we're planning on terminating it, but it would just be, I think it would be more efficient to have it automatically renew at the same terms unless terminated or modified by the parties by a certain date. We have not yet spoken with the county on this. I was going to speak with Leslie today. Lila and I decided that before we present it to them, we should present it to council to see if council's agreeable to entering into it, because if council is not interested in entering into this, then there's really no point in me discussing it with Leslie.
I wasn't able to say it. It kind of helps us, keeps us from looking
Any
at
changes,
like we got,
Other than making that say that it's an automatic renewal. Yeah, the price doesn't change.
Yeah.
That was,
Rewrite it so it automatically renews opposed to notification.
And so, I mean, I'll just send Leslie an email and say, in reviewing this, we propose, this has been presented to City Council, we propose this, let us know your thoughts on it. Hopefully, you know, she can take it to, I believe the commissioners are meeting on Friday, is it? So hopefully, I will send her an email either this evening or first thing tomorrow morning. Hopefully she can present it to them at their meeting and we can get this signed. They can get it signed at their meeting if they approve it. I have Mike's original Word document, so I'm going to just edit it with our proposed revision and send that to Leslie. If the commissioners agree, they can sign it, we can sign it at the next, you guys can approve it and sign it at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
I have nothing else.
Let's see. I only have two things. I got a little bit of information on the grant, the federal grant for theaters. It's called the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. Applications are not open yet. When they do become open, because of where we fall with the losses that we had, which was, let me back up, our loss year over year, total revenue, tickets, concessions, was 67% in 2020 compared to what we had 2019. But because of the way that they've structured these grants, we would not be eligible to apply until round 3. The first round is a 90% loss, the second round is 70% or greater, and then the third round is anything else. The most that we can, when we get to that point, if we apply for any funding, the most that we can apply for is 45% of what our gross revenue was in 2019, so that would be $24,840.23. My question to the council is, there's a lot of work involved in applying for this grant, and I just need to know if that is something, if you feel like that is worth us applying for. I will say that Robert had some concerns of, his concern was public perception, where these grants are administered by the Small Business Administration. His feeling was theaters that this is their livelihood, they're going to go under if they don't get grant funding, as opposed to the city theater that's not necessarily going to go under if it doesn't get grant funding. He was concerned about the perception of us going after funds that could be used for other entities that may need it more. So that's where we're at with that. You don't have to, you can think about it, and then at the next meeting let me know if you want to pursue this particular grant. And I will put this out on the share. Maybe I already did. I think I might have already put it out there. If it's not out there, I will put it out there so that you can give it. Okay. So just give it some thought. But that's what I know about that right now. And the only other thing is my work anniversary is February 2nd, and I would like to request vacation carryover of 40 hours because I didn't get to use all my vacation either this year. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. That's all I have.
To approve the budget report. So, moved by Dara, second by Larry, all in favor. David? Gail? Larry? Motion to adjourn?
Okay.
Larry?
Second is
Hey, Gail, I'm gonna ask you one thing real quick.
David? Yeah, David.